Hi, my name is Mark White, and I am the world's leading expert on the genetic code. Now, before you get too impressed with that title, there's a few things you need to know. First of all, nobody actually knows the genetic code. A lot of people think they do, but in fact, the more they think they know it, the less they actually know. Secondly, there's one important thing that you need to know about the code, and I'm apparently the only one that knows it. It really is a code. It's an abstract mathematical principle that guides the molecules of life. Okay. Now, the way that it's understood today is infected by a paradigm that is completely false. In other words, they believe that the genetic code is one thing, but in fact, it is not. So these beliefs lead to statements that are false, ideas that are false. You can't even say a true thing with this false paradigm. So we can understand this code very quickly with this prop called a codon table, where we take two sets of molecules, one of them nucleotides representing DNA, the other one amino acids representing protein, and we can connect the two together. For instance, C, and C connects to proline. So there's a linear connection between three nucleotides and one amino acid. That's it. That's the whole code. The problem is that's not actually a code. That's a recipe. Okay? The genetic code is not a simple linear recipe. It is a complex, nonlinear, logical, mathematical code. So, step one in becoming the world's leading expert is just to know or reject this false paradigm and know that the genetic code really is a code. Now, how are we going to understand and describe that? Well, life is a machine. It's a molecular machine. Therefore, it has a machine language. We can take this simple machine, which all it does is relate the perfect symmetry of two perfect objects and animates them in space through time, is an emulator of the machine language of life. So that's a good place to start. This is an actual code. Now, when they did this false paradigm, what they did was they stood cause and effect on its head. These people were heroes. They did great work. They went out and they found these molecules and they found this behavior and they found this correlation, but they got cause and effect reversed. They said, these molecules cause this table. This table causes this code. That's false. It's the other way around. The code causes the molecules to evolve and then execute the code. This code has been evolving since the beginning of Earth. It's still evolving. Any molecule at any time for any reason can be a part of this code. It does not require this specific set of molecules. The code will operate independent of the molecules. So that's the difference between recipe and code. We know the problem. The problem is we have a false paradigm. We need to reject that paradigm first. Then we need to invent a new paradigm. And fortunately, I've invented a couple of tools that work. I've invented this simple machine, and I've invented this codon table. So you say, well, these are both just data tables. What's the difference? Well, the difference is the difference between data and information. Codes operate on information. So we don't want to use these tables as data tables. We want to use them as mathematical graphs of information. When you do that, when you go from an actual code to a mathematical graph, the first thing you need to do is be mathematically correct. This is mathematically incorrect. They make math mistakes when they make this table. This data table is mathematically correct. So it facilitates our ability to see and understand the actual logical relationships of the code within the molecules and the property of the molecules themselves. Well, this would seem to be a no-brainer. I mean, we have the choice between a recipe and a code. We're already calling it a code. Why not treat it like a code? Give it variables. Put math into it. Use logic, okay? But they are not going to do that. They're never going to do that because we're talking about a belief system. And this belief system is widely known, completely universally accepted. They're not going to abandon this belief system. There's too much invested in these beliefs. They would rather say things that they know to be false and excuse them, say, oh, there's exceptions to every rule and you just don't understand science, rather than abandon that belief and shift to a belief where you don't say false things, where you don't say that the language of all life can be learned in 2 minutes and it's simple linear correlation, a recipe, okay? The language of life is the most complex thing on earth. It's the most nonlinear thing on earth. It's a complex nonlinear code of spatial information. Okay, those are true things. We already know they're true. Why not just start saying them? Well, the answer is because we've got a false paradigm. It needs to shift to a true paradigm, but that's never easy. It's never pretty. Out of the goodness of my heart, I'm going to take the time and make the effort to try and explain this to people who desperately need to know it. It's not going to take 2 minutes like this. It's going to take, I guess, 5 to 10 hours of these kind of videos because there's a lot of details we need to step through and try and understand before we can understand how this code actually came about, why and how it works, to actually have a good understanding of the most important thing in science, which is the language of all life on Earth. So let's put on our big boy pants and get busy.